January 14, 1892. The Pittsburgh Press, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jesse James' Ghost. A realistic goblin romance from West Virginia. Spirits in loud revelry. The former headquarters of the bandit leader tenanted by night by laughing, mocking demons who defy detection and terrify the neighborhood. Clarksburg, West Virginia, January 14. Special. The town of Adamston, a suburb of this city, is considerably exercised over the mysterious events which are of nightly occurrence at a house on the Wolf Summit Road close to the borough. For months past, persons whose business called them out late at night have reported that they saw lights in the house mentioned, and that sounds of revelry and music could be heard for a quarter of a mile from the place. It was known that the house was uninhabited, and these reports caused something of a stir, although many thought that a gang of tramps had taken up their abode there and were having high times each night when they returned from their begging and pilfering expeditions. Yesterday, a number of citizens visited the place to see if they could find out who had taken possession. They found it absolutely bare of everything which a human being would need. The fireplaces showed no indications of fire having been in them for months past, although the night previous the chimneys had been seen smoking, and the windows were lighted up as though there were large fires in every grate. The desolate appearance of the place had a gruesome effect upon the visitors, who, even though it was daylight, did not stay long to make the investigation. Last night, a party of about 20 men, armed and prepared to face the devil and all his hosts, congregated at Francis's store and started out with the view of solving the mystery. They reached the house about midnight and, as usual, found it brilliantly illuminated, and the sound of violins, banjos, and other instruments together with the shouts of the revelers could be plainly heard. The leaders of the posse called out from the road, and upon receiving no reply, fired a volley from their revolvers. This had not the least effect in the world, and the shouts and laughter seemed only to increase. Finally, 2 of the most intrepid regulators plucked up courage enough to go to the door and knock, but hardly had they done so when the door flew open with great violence, the lights were extinguished, and they were greeted with a blast of cold air that almost threw them from their feet. They groped their way back to their companions, who lit their lanterns, and upon looking at the features of the 5 men, found they were blackened as though they had been covered with coal dust. A constitution then took place, and it was decided that the whole party should arm themselves with torches and proceed in a body to the mysterious house. This they soon did, only to find that things were apparently in the same condition as in the morning, there being no sign of recent fire, and the walls, mantels, and grates having a cold, clammy sweat on them, as if they had been unused for years. This puzzled the visitors exceedingly, and they did not tarry long, as the very air seemed full of ghosts and goblins. It is not improbable but that the building will be razed to the ground today, as timid people are afraid to travel the road any more after night. The house was formerly occupied by a well-to-do family, who claimed to be relatives of the notorious Jesse James, and it is said that he made his headquarters there during his raid through West Virginia. Shortly after his death, the inhabitants disappeared, and from that time forward, the house has been apparently unoccupied. The mysterious sounds were noticeable for the first time about 3 months since, and they were reported by a man named Lynch from Wolf Summit. He was laughed at and accused of having been carrying too heavy a jag on his way home. But after this, the reports became of daily occurrence, and consequently, the matter was taken up by others. What causes the curious phenomena is still a puzzle, and if it is a joke, There is no clue yet to the perpetrators. July 10, 1928, the Lewiston Daily Sun, Lewiston, Maine. Washington's cat ghosts. Feline said to appear every 4 years and before disasters. Washington, the city of magnificent distances, is steeped in superstitious beliefs and singular ghost tales, says the Pathfinder. Many places, including the capital itself, are shrouded in ghostly fantasy. The romantic and weird legends of the capital ghosts date back to the early days of its construction. The rounds of the capital has its own special set of ghosts. Among the famous old houses are none so rich in ghost tales as the Octagon House, now the Institute of American Architects. The old Octagon House is where the Madisons took up their abode when the British burned the White House. This queer old structure was the scene of romance and tragedy during the early days of the city, and there are ghost stories galore concerning it. The house itself is full of secret doors and passageways, and there used to be tunnels leading from it to neighboring estates. It was built during the administration of George Washington. Its queer construction, as well as the many related ghost tales, are attributed to the troublous times in which it was built. It is said that the cat ghosts appear every 4 years and before some terrible disaster. The Octagon House was recently threatened to be partly concealed by a new office building, but the architects took a hand and it will not be overshadowed. It is said that George Washington had a hand in designing this old house. President Madison and the vivacious Dolly lived there for more than a year after the British burned the White House. Legend has it that Dolly Madison had a clandestine midnight meeting in the garret of the Octagon House with Aaron Burr, supposed to have been her suitor before she accepted Madison. Among the relics at the Octagon House is the table on which Madison signed the Treaty of Ghent. The thud of a falling body and the hiss of a cat can still be heard there by imaginative people, all because, it is said, Betty Taylor, a niece of the first owner of the house, tripped to her death over a black cat while hurrying down the circular stairway to meet her lover. Which reminds that the most amusing of the Washington ghost stories deal with cats. For years, many cats, most of them quite wild, have lived in the cellars of federal buildings, where they wage constant war on the rats and mice. And their nightly prowls and raids are responsible for a number of the sensational ghost stories on Capitol Hill.